Deep in the bamboo forest where mountains touched the sky, a tiger cub named Dao stretched his paws and tried to roar. He planted his feet wide, puffed his chest, lifted his chin, and opened his mouth as wide as it would go. What came out was not thunder. It was a squeak, soft as a kitten meowing for milk. The sound bounced between the bamboo stalks like a secret joke. Dao blinked. "That can't be right," he muttered. He tried again. Birds burst from the trees, not in fear but in laughter. A sparrow chirped. "Did you hear that?" The tiger cub meows. A magpie tilted its head. Maybe his part house cat. Dao's ears burned. Tigers were supposed to roar loud enough to shake the hills. His father's roar sent deer racing. His mother's roar echoed like a drum. But Dao sounded like a lost kitten. He practiced in the mornings. He practiced at noon. He practiced at night when fireflies blinked like lanterns. Each time, meep. Never thunder, never storm. Always squeak. One afternoon, Dao padded to the riverbank. His reflection wavered in the water, round eyes, big paws, stripy coat, and a very serious frown. He roared at himself. Meep. The fish below scattered in bubbles. From behind a rock, a young monkey popped out, clutching a stolen banana. Nice roar, the monkey snickered. You'll scare fruit to death with that sound. Leave me alone, Dao growled or tried to. It came out like a whiny squeak. The monkey rolled on the grass laughing. Dao sighed, tail drooping. He wanted to hide under the bamboo leaves. But just then, his grandmother appeared, her stripes faded with age, her eyes calm like the mountain at dawn. She settled beside him and touched his ear with her nose. Why the long face, little one? I can't roar, Dao whispered. I only squeak. Everyone laughs. Grandmother Tiger chuckled softly. Do you know why bamboo bends in the wind? Because it's weak. Dao guessed. No, she said. Because it's wise. Strong things can break, but bamboo bends and survives. She looked into his eyes. Perhaps your small roar has its own wisdom. Don't be ashamed. Use it, and see what it can do. Dao tilted his head. Could a meep ever matter? He wasn't sure. But her words planted a seed in his heart, just like bamboo seeds that grew into forests. That night, under a sky sprinkled with stars, Dao whispered to himself, tomorrow, I'll try again. And though his roar still squeaked, the forest listened, curious to see what this little tiger cub might become. Morning slipped through the bamboo like a ribbon of gold. Dew stitched bright dots along every leaf, spiderwebs turned to necklaces when the sun found them. Dao the tiger cub woke with a small shiver of courage. Grandma's words from last night lingered, perhaps your small roar has its own wisdom. He padded to the river where smooth stones wore moss like green shoes. Okay, he told his reflection, which wobbled with the current. We practice, but we listen first. The forest answered him in tiny ways. From a reed near the bank came a frog's pluck bloop, as if someone snapped a wet rubber band. Hidden in the grass, a cricket stitched the air. High in the bamboo, a bulbul let a liquid note slide like a raindrop down a window. Wind fingered the stalks until they whispered a hush that felt like a blanket being pulled up to the chin. Dao's ears swiveled. These were not thunder voices. They were close and careful and small. He tried copying them. Bloop, he said. It came out meep. He breathed, and that at least felt right, a soft river of air moving through him. Practicing, asked a dry voice behind him. Dao turned to see a praying mantis on a sun-warmed rock, standing like a tiny green general, elbows lifted, face triangular and serious. "I'm learning to roar," Dao admitted. "But my roar is little." "Little is not wrong," said the mantis. "Little is precise." He lifted one spiky foreleg. "Strike where sound fits." He cut the air tick so clean Dao felt the slice. Before Dao could answer, pale wings folded beside the river. A crane stepped down, water beading on her legs like pearls. "We are discussing music," she asked, voice smooth as silk ribbon. "Roaring," Dao said gloomily. "I'm bad at it." "Are you trying to be thunder when you are mourning birdsong?" the crane asked, sipping. "Not every voice must shake mountains. Some voices guide rivers." "Guide rivers?" Dao echoed. "Come," the crane said, leading him upstream to where water split around a rock. On one side, the river laughed tick-a-tick-tick over pebbles. On the other it hummed hum. Together they made a duet, small and true. "The river does not shout to be itself," the crane said. "It flows as it must, and the valley listens." A red panda tumbled out of a tree, landing in a drift of bamboo leaves with a gentle foof. He brushed his tail like a broom. "Did someone say duet? I can hum harmony." He puffed his cheeks, soft and silly. Dao's whiskers lifted despite himself. "I'm Rui," the red panda said, tapping his chest. "This is Master Steplight," the mantis bowed, "and Wingsong." The crane dipped her head. Rui grinned. "So, Dao, let's hear this famous roar." Dao planted his feet wide, the way father did. He lifted his chin, opened his mouth, gathered all his courage. The sound hopped over the water like a small pebble wanting very much to be a rock. "Perfect." Rui clapped. "Perfect." Dao blinked. "For a small roar," Rui said. "It hops." Some doors opened to a hop. The crane nodded. "Show him," she said. They moved to a thicket of reeds where 5 ducklings bobbed in a tight cluster. Their mother paddled frantic circles just beyond a fallen branch. The water on the far side was calm and safe, but the branch pinned a shallow pocket. If she forced her way in, the branch would jam tighter. If she left, the ducklings would panic. "Big roar would scare them," Rui whispered. "Little roar invites." Dao crept to the edge. The duckling's eyes were bright black beads. "Hello," he tried, voice low. "Don't be afraid. I'm small too." He swallowed. "On 3, we go under the branch. I'll sing like the river." The mantis lifted his foreleg like a tiny flag. The crane leaned in, steady as a lighthouse. Dao breathed a long sh. He sang a pattern, meep, meep, shush, meep. Ridiculous. Gentle. The ducklings tilted their heads and copied him. Peep, shish, peep. "Now," Dao whispered. He slid into the cold water, belly fur drinking the river. He pressed his shoulder to the branch and didn't shove like thunder, he lifted like morning wind, just enough to bow the wood. One by one, under the branch's brief doorway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their mother burst into grateful quacking, circling them to open current. Rui whooped. The crane smiled with her eyes. The mantis shaved the air with approval. Dao clambered out and shook himself, water flinging off in bright commas. "You did it," Rui said, bumping his shoulder. "My small roar helped," Dao said, breath quick. "It didn't frighten," the crane added. "It focused." "Precise," said the mantis. Also adorable, Rui added, because he could not help it. The ducklings peeped their thanks like raindrops. Their mother bowed her head in the grave way of birds. Dao ducked his own head back, suddenly shy. They walked the path home together, Mantis a green pinprick, Crane stepping like a dancer, Red Panda bouncing and humming. Dao padded in the middle, ears high. Thunder is useful, said the crane, but so is morning birdsong. Your forest already has thunder. My father, Dao said, picturing hills that listened. And your mother, Rui said. Never argue with a mother roar. Dao laughed. The laugh was small, but it made the path feel wider. At the clearing, Grandma waited on her flat sunstone, as if she'd been listening to the river too. Well, she asked, eyes warm. Dao didn't puff his chest or pretend largeness. He simply sat close and said, Grandma, today my roar was little. He held his paws a whisker apart, and it mattered. Grandma's whiskers lifted. Ah, she breathed. The bamboo learns to bend. Evening braided itself through the stalks. Around them, the forest's tiny choir kept playing. Dao let the sounds cover him like a blanket. When the first star stitched itself to the sky, he tried his roar again, not from claws or pride, but from the place where breath turns kind. It floated up, brushed a bamboo leaf, and stayed there like a promise. Tomorrow, Dao whispered, I'll practice with the river. And with friends, Grandma said. And with friends, Dao agreed, as the night closed gently, carrying along a very small roar that finally knew the size of its job. The next morning, mist drifted low like silk scarves across the bamboo forest. Dao stretched, paws pressing into damp earth, heart quickened by the memory of ducklings and Grandma's proud smile. His small roar had worked once. Could it work again? Today, he told himself, I will find where voices go. He padded along winding trails until the bamboo thinned, and a steep rise appeared ahead. At the top stood a rocky ledge locals called the Hill of Echoes. Tigers used it to practice their power. When Dao's father roared here, the mountains answered 3 times over. When Dao's mother roared, birds took flight for miles. Dao climbed slowly, claws scraping stone. By the time he reached the flat top, his whiskers tingled with nerves. Below, the valley lay open, terraces of rice, a ribbon of river, roofs of faraway huts. He planted his paws, widened his stance, and filled his lungs. This time, he thought. This time I'll sound like thunder. The sound popped into the sky like a bubble. It skipped once, then faded. Silence pressed in. Dao's ears sagged. The hill gave his squeak back to him. Dao blinked. Again. A second echo, softer, like a cub copying him. The third bounced faintly, thin as a thread. Dao tilted his head. Echoes, but tiny too. Leaves rustled. From the shadow of a boulder, Rui the red panda scrambled up, carrying a half-eaten peach. Not bad, he said with a grin. You woke the hill. Barely, Dao sighed. Barely is still something, Rui said, juice dripping from his chin. He tossed Dao the pit. See what else listens. Together they tried. Dao meeped, Rui hummed, the mantis tapped his forelegs on the stone like drumsticks, and when the crane glided in, she let a long note rise like a silver thread. The hill gathered their patchwork of sounds and threw them back, echo upon echo, weaving a chorus. Dao laughed, the sound bouncing too, multiplied until the valley seemed to laugh with him. For a moment, his squeak wasn't small. It was part of something larger. But then the laughter broke. From far below came a cry, sharp, frightened. Dao's ears perked. Down in the valley, goats scattered, villagers waving arms. A shadow moved near the rice fields. A wolf pack, lean and hungry. Rui froze. The crane's wings half opened. The mantis clicked. Dao's paws trembled. Wolves feared tigers, but only if tigers roared. His squeak. Would it mean anything? He looked at the hill, the stone, the valley ready to carry sound. His chest swelled. He didn't need thunder. He needed to be heard. He poured breath into it, over and over, until the echoes multiplied, racing across the slopes. It wasn't one cub's squeak anymore. It was a chorus of alarm, urgent and strange. The wolves paused, ears twitching. Echoes rose from every side, bouncing like invisible hunters. Spooked, the pack slunk back into the tree line. Villagers stared up at the hill, shading their eyes, then bowed deeply toward the small figure above. Dao's legs wobbled. He sank onto his haunches, heart hammering. Rui slapped his back. Did you see their faces? You, little thunder, sent wolves packing. The crane's eyes shone. Your roar may be small, Dao, but the mountain lends it weight. The mantis flicked his antennae. A pebble makes ripples. Enough ripples move stone. Dao breathed, chest still quivering. His small roar had saved goats, maybe lives. He gazed out over the valley, wind ruffling his fur. For the first time, he didn't wish his voice were louder. He only wished to learn how far a small roar could travel. That evening, back at the den, Grandma listened as Dao told the story. She pressed her muzzle to his forehead. The forest heard you, she whispered. Dao curled beside her, tired but glowing. Outside, night gathered, and the hill of echoes waited for the next voice, thunder, song, or squeak that dared to climb. Dawn found Dao padding down a misty path with Rui bouncing at his side. The forest smelled of wet leaves, and bamboo stalks swayed like green towers. Rui hummed tunelessly, tapping his striped tail against trunks as if playing invisible drums. "Since when do you play music?" Dao asked. "Since forever," Rui said proudly. "You just never listened." He smacked a hollow stalk tomb and grinned. "See, bamboo sings." Dao tilted his head. The sound was deep, almost like a drum. He tapped another stalk. Tonk. Higher. The forest answered with notes of its own. Soon they were testing everything. Rui flicked pebbles across a hollow log. Dao slapped the river's surface with his paw, sending ripples like cymbal crashes. The crane joined, wings beating the air with a low whomp-whomp. Even the mantis clicked his forelegs in steady rhythm. Before long, they had a bamboo band. Rui kept tempo on trunks, Dao squeaked little roars in between, the crane's wings hummed, the mantis added sharp ticks. What began as noise melted into rhythm. The forest itself seemed to lean closer, curious. Dao's small roar, mixed with bamboo's hollow tomb, didn't sound weak anymore. It sounded playful, like a cub's trumpet sliding into music. Rui called it the squeak solo. They laughed so hard they collapsed in the leaves, chests heaving. Dao felt lighter than he had in days. His voice didn't need to frighten, it could celebrate. Then a flutter of movement caught their eyes. Children from a nearby village had wandered close, baskets slung on their backs. They froze at the sight of tiger stripes, eyes wide, mouths open. Rui's drumbeat faltered. Dao's heart jolted. This was the test. He stood slowly, paws steady. The children clutched each other. Dao breathed. Instead of growling, he let out a sequence of squeaks, meep, 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 woven into the rhythm they'd just played. He tapped a stalk, tonk, and nodded. To their surprise, one child giggled. Another tapped her basket rim in reply. Soon they were copying, a rough but eager rhythm. The forest band had new members. By the time the children's parents called them back, the clearing rang with laughter. No one was afraid. The tiger cub was not thunder, he was music. That night, Grandma listened to his story with glowing eyes. "You've found another use for your roar," she said softly. "Thunder clears paths. Music gathers hearts." Dao curled beside her, the day's rhythm still thumping inside him. He thought, maybe my roar doesn't need to be one thing. Maybe it can be many. And as he drifted to sleep, the bamboo outside tapped gently in the breeze, carrying his small song into the night. Autumn brushed the forest with gold. From the ridge above Mylin, Dao and Rui watched the lanterns bloom across the village like a river of stars. Paper globes, rabbit shapes, and dragon mouths swayed in the dusk breeze, glowing against the darkening sky. "Pretty," Rui whispered. "And perfect for fun." "Mischief again?" Dao sighed, but curiosity tugged him down the slope. The square was alive with sound and smell, flutes warming up, drums pulsing, vendors clattering lids, and the sweet scent of rice cakes drifting through smoke. Children twirled paper lanterns on sticks, giggling as their lights painted circles on the cobbles. Rui scampered up a post, grabbed a lantern, and dangled it. "See? Easy." Gasps rose. But eyes fixed not on Rui, on Dao, the striped cub now caught in the circle of glow. Mothers pulled children close. Men shouted, uncertain. Dao's paws froze. His chest swelled for thunder, but what came out was the sound he knew too well. Meep. The tiny roar bounced off the poles, absurd and small. The square stiffened, then cracked when a boy laughed. Dao's ears flicked. He tried again, this time adding a rhythm, meep, meep, meep. He pawed the cobbles in time, making a beat. A child copied him, swinging her lantern side to side. Another joined, then another. Soon a ring of children swayed, their lights moving like dancers. Rui thumped the post with his tail to add a drumbeat. Laughter bubbled where fear had been. The music grew, claps from a vendor, a flute slipping in softly, parents smiling despite themselves. Lanterns dipped and swayed like stars that had chosen to dance. When the rhythm faded, Dao stepped forward. He picked up the dragon lantern Rui had stolen, placed it gently back on its hook, and bowed his head. Silence held. Then an old woman in a faded jacket walked up. She studied Dao, then pressed a warm rice cake into his paw. "Little raw, big heart," she said. Relief washed through the square. Children edged close, lifting their lanterns to his height as if to share their glow. Dao's eyes shone brighter than any wax. For the first time, his squeak hadn't only calmed, it had created joy. That night, Dao told Grandma everything: the stolen lantern, the laughter, the rice cake. She listened with patient eyes. "Lanterns shine brightest when shared," she murmured, grooming his ear. "So do voices." Dao curled against her fur, warmth wrapping him like a blanket. Outside, the last lanterns drifted skyward, tiny wishes burning toward the stars. Inside his chest, a small roar glowed, steady as a flame deciding to stay. Mist lifted off the river like breath as Dao padded toward the old wooden bridge. Rui bounded along the railings, tail swishing, while the crane glided low over the current. The mantis clicked from Dao's shoulder, precise as always. "Why the bridge?" Rui asked. "Because it sings," Dao said. He remembered how the bamboo made music. The bridge had its own song too. The planks groaned beneath his paws, ropes creaked, and water gurgled below. Dao tapped one board tonk. Rui drummed the railing thrum. The crane beat her wings once woomph. Even the mantis added sharp tick-tick notes. Together, the sounds braided into rhythm. Dao squeaked along, soft and steady. The bridge became an instrument, the river its echo. For a moment, they were a band again, and Dao's small roar was not out of place. But mid-song, villagers appeared, carrying baskets across. They halted when they saw the cub. Fear flickered. A tiger on the bridge was no safe sight. Dao's chest tightened. If he tried thunder, they'd scatter. Instead, he kept the beat. Meep, meep, meep. His squeaks joined the rhythm of rope and plank. He lowered his head and stepped aside, leaving half the bridge open. The villagers hesitated. Then a child tapped her basket in time with him. Another laughed. Soon the crossing became a procession of music, feet thudding, baskets tapping, voices humming. Dao's squeaks kept time, guiding them safely across. On the far bank, the last villager turned, not with fear, but with a nod. "Thank you, little one." Dao's heart thudded like a drum. His roar had not driven anyone away. It had carried them across. When they left, the bridge was quiet again. Dao sat with his friends, paws still tingling. "That was different," Rui said softly. "It wasn't thunder," Dao admitted. "It was steady." The crane folded her wings. Not every roar is meant to frighten. Some are meant to hold. The mantis flicked his antennae. "Precise," he said. That night, back at the den, Dao told Grandma. She smiled, eyes deep as twilight. "Bridges are kept by voices that steady, not shatter," she said. Dao curled close, the rhythm of planks still in his paws. The forest outside whispered with crickets, frogs, and the hush of water. And Dao, drifting into dreams, thought perhaps his roar was learning to be not loud, but lasting. Clouds piled thick and dark over the mountains, rolling down like heavy blankets. By dusk the bamboo bent low, leaves rattling. Dao crouched at the den's edge, fur pricking. He had never liked storms. Thunder mocked what his own throat could not make. Rui scampered in circles, uneasy. "It smells wrong," he muttered. The crane perched on a pine, feathers slicked flat. The mantis clung to Dao's whiskers, clicking. A crack split the sky. Rain poured in sudden sheets, drumming the forest. Dao's ears flattened. His small roar was nothing against thunder's booming voice. Then a shout rose from below, human voices tangled with fear. Lantern lights wobbled in the village square. The river, swollen by rain, had burst its banks. Water clawed at the lower huts, sweeping baskets and logs toward the bridge. "Too fast," Rui gasped. "They'll be trapped." Dao's chest clenched. His father's roar could scatter wolves. His mother's could shake hills. What could he do? He looked at the water, rising, snarling. Not thunder, but rhythm. Not force, but signal. He stepped onto the soaked planks of the bridge. Rain hammered his back. He lifted his head and squeaked. Once. Twice. Again. Meep, meep, meep. The sound was tiny, but steady. Villagers turned. His squeaks cut through the storm like a metronome. One by one they matched their steps, crossing in rhythm. Dao squeaked faster, meep meep meep, guiding them to hurry. Children clutched lanterns, parents held baskets, feet splashed but kept the beat. The crane swooped low, wings sheltering a group. Rui tugged ropes loose so the bridge wouldn't snap. The mantis ticked from Dao's ear, steady as a drumstick. The storm raged, but the squeak roar kept its line. Villagers crossed in time, no one lost. At the last moment a lantern slipped, bobbing in the flood. Dao darted forward, teeth grabbing the pole, hauling it back to its owner. The child hugged it, eyes wide with thanks. When the last villager stepped onto safe ground, Dao sagged, soaked through. The storm still growled, but the square was empty, everyone safe. His small roar had not silenced thunder, but it had organized hearts against it. Later, when he curled beside Grandma, she licked the rain from his fur. "Storms always shout," she murmured. But even storms listen to rhythm. Dao closed his eyes, exhaustion sweet as sleep. Outside, the river roared, but inside his chest, a softer sound held steady his little voice, proving itself once more. Morning after the storm was washed clean. Puddles mirrored the sky, and every leaf glittered. Dao padded with Rui into the village, where grateful families hung damp clothes and repaired fences. Instead of fear, smiles followed him. The boy with the saved lantern bowed so low his nose nearly touched the mud. On the square wall, where villagers recorded their stories, the paint had run. Dragons blurred, mountains sagged, colors melted into streaks. The storm ruined it, Rui whispered. Children's faces tightened. The wall was more than decoration, it was memory. Dao stepped close, nose brushing the wet plaster. He squeaked, soft, and poured a shape into the mud. A circle. Then another. His rhythm, meep, meep meep. The children tilted their heads. A girl picked up a brush and traced his circles into bright suns. Another drew waves beneath them. Soon the square filled with laughter and new colors. Rui dipped his tail into red dye and flicked sparks across the wall. The crane dragged her wingtip in sweeping arcs that became mountains again. Even the mantis tapped tiny dots, a pattern that looked like stars. Dao added paw prints, each stamped with care. The ruined wall turned into a new scroll, one born from storm and rhythm. Villagers gathered, murmuring. Fear had been washed away like old paint. In its place, a tiger cub whose small roar had sparked art. An elder nodded. When the storm breaks, stories must be told again. By dusk, lanterns lit the new wall. Dao sat at Grandma's side, paws still stained with dye. She looked at the glowing scroll and whispered, "Voices paint too. Yours has begun to color hearts." Dao's chest swelled, not with thunder, but with warmth. His squeak had become more than sound. It was part of the village's story now. By late summer, Mylin smelled like a kitchen that had spilled into the streets. Steam rose from bamboo baskets stacked with buns, fish roasted on spits, melons glistened in piles, and bowls of noodles gleamed with oil. Music drifted through the squared drums, flutes, and the chatter of 100 voices braided together. Dao padded at Rui's side, nose twitching. The air was heavy with sesame, ginger, and smoke. Children darted between stalls with sticky fingers, vendors shouted over one another, and bright banners rippled in the breeze. "Perfect," Rui muttered. His eyes glittered. "It's a parade of food, and we are definitely joining." Ahead, villagers lifted trays and baskets onto poles. Drums struck a slow beat, and the line began to circle the square. People clapped in time. A boy swung a lantern painted with cranes. The whole market turned into one moving ribbon of color. Rui dashed forward, tail dusting flour, and squeezed into the line as if he belonged. Dao hesitated, but the rhythm of the drums pulled him. He stepped into place between two women carrying melons. Gasps flared. A tiger cub among the parade looked like danger. Mothers reached for children, vendors stiffened mid-shout. Dao's paws faltered. But memory pressed at his chest. The bridge, the storm, the lanterns. He breathed once and squeaked, "Meep, meep, meep." It came out small but steady, matching the drum. He pawed the ground in rhythm. The parade wavered, then a girl laughed. Someone clapped along. Rui thumped a basket like a drum. The hesitation broke, and the line surged again. The squeak had folded itself into the music. A baker leaned down and pressed a warm bun into Dao's paw without breaking stride. A boy slipped him a painted stick to wave like a banner. Dao's ears lifted. He marched with them, squeaking in time, guiding steps as naturally as breathing. The parade grew louder. Rui scrambled onto a tray of melons, juggling two before tossing them to delighted children. The crane wheeled above, wings flashing white in the sunlight, while even the mantis perched on Dao's ear clacked its arms like cymbals. They circled the square once, twice. Each lap gathered more people until the whole market seemed to move together. Banners streamed, trays shook with rhythm, and Dao's squeaks stitched through it all, a tiny but constant note. When the drums finally rolled to a stop, the parade stalled before the temple gate. For a heartbeat, silence hung. Then villagers cheered. Children crowded close, lifting Dao onto a barrel. He blinked, paws trembling, but no fear came. Only laughter and applause. Little roar, big heart, voices chanted. Someone crowned him with a wreath of leaves. Dao sat frozen for a moment, then let his squeak fly meep and the cheer doubled. That night, belly full of buns, Dao told Grandma every detail. She listened, whiskers twitching. A voice that marches with others, she said, is stronger than one that shouts alone. Dao nestled against her side. Outside, the market still hummed faintly, echoes of drums and squeaks carried on the night air. His small roar, once only a squeak, had become part of the parade's song. Maylene's rooftops glowed silver in the moonlight. Tiles still damp from the last rain shone like scales, and laundry lines fluttered between chimneys. Dao crouched with Rui on a ridge, tails swishing. Below, the market square had gone quiet, its lanterns out, leaving only crickets and the faint splash of river water. Tonight, Rui whispered, we race the roofs. His eyes glimmered with mischief. Dao tilted his head. Race. Across the houses. Of course. The tiles sing when you run. Haven't you ever listened? Rui leapt before Dao could answer, paws skimming across curved clay. Dao hesitated, then sprang after him. The tiles rattled under his weight but held. His claws clicked, paws padded, and his breath came fast. Rui darted left, right, tail flicking like a banner. The chase was on. Dogs barked below, startled awake. A window slid open. A boy peeked out, wide-eyed, then laughed and pointed as the tiger cub bounded overhead. The rooftop runner, he whispered, as if naming a legend. Rui scrambled onto a chimney, paused to balance, then vanished across a gap. Dao followed. The leap stretched longer than it looked. He squeaked midair, meep, and landed with a skid. Tiles clattered loose, tumbling to the street. He froze, ears back. But instead of anger, giggles rose from below. A group of children, wrapped in blankets, had gathered to watch. "Do it again," one called softly. The little roar. Tao blinked. His cheeks warmed. He padded forward, gave a squeak in rhythm with his steps, meep, meep meep, and ran the line of roof like a drum. Rui added tail thumps, turning the chase into a rooftop song. More faces peeked out, a baker wiping flour from his hair, a grandmother with a lantern, even the temple keeper old Chen. None shouted. They only listened, smiling, as the rooftops became Dao's stage. The chase ended where the houses thinned and the river opened wide. Dao stood panting, fur lit by moonlight, heart racing not with fear but with exhilaration. Rui nudged him, grinning. "Told you the tiles sing." From across the river, an echo bounced faintly, his squeak carried by night air. Dao lifted his head and squeaked once more, soft but sure. The sound danced over rooftops, met by a scatter of quiet claps and laughter from the village below. Later, curled beside Grandma, he whispered the story. She chuckled. "Even rooftops need music," she said. "And even the smallest roar can wake the night kindly." Dao closed his eyes, paws tingling with the memory of running above a village that had once feared him, now cheering him on. The rooftops had become part of his voice. Morning spilled warm light across Maylene Square. After nights of rooftops and rain, the village wanted music. Stalls opened early, and neighbors carried pots, baskets, and wooden spoons, not to sell, but to play. Dao padded in with Rui, blinking. "What's happening?" Dao asked. "A rehearsal," Rui grinned. "They're making an orchestra out of everything." Children banged bamboo steamers like drums. A fishmonger blew across glass bottles filled with water until they hummed. A bun vendor clashed her lids like cymbals. The crane flapped her wings in a slow bass rhythm, while even the mantis tapped the rim of a pot with sharp ticks. Dao's ears twitched. The sounds were scattered, messy, like a market in chaos. Some laughed, some grimaced. The rhythm would not hold. He stepped onto a rice barrel, paws steady, and squeaked. Meep, meep, meep. His little roar cut through like a whistle. Heads turned. He repeated it, paws thumping in time. Slowly, the scattered noise bent toward his rhythm. The bun lady clashed her lids after his third squeak. Children struck bamboo steamers in sync. The fishmonger adjusted the bottles, sliding notes between Dao's beats. Soon the square pulsed with music, playful, chaotic, but together. Rui leapt onto a crate, tail beating like a drumstick. Dao squeaked louder, keeping time. The orchestra grew until the whole market rang. Vendors laughed, children danced, and even old Chen tapped his staff in grudging rhythm. For the first time, Dao's small roar was not a mistake in a crowd. It was the thread that stitched sound together. He squeaked, they answered. He paused, they filled. The square became an instrument, every face part of its song. When the music ended, silence lingered for one heartbeat, then applause burst. Dao bowed awkwardly, ears burning, but smiles met him everywhere. A child shouted, "Conductor cub," and laughter rippled. That night, Grandma listened while Dao told the story. "An orchestra," she chuckled. "So now your roar does not only warn or guide. It leads." Dao tucked against her side, still hearing the echoes of pots, lids, and laughter. He had not become thunder. He had become music. Morning after the storm was clear and bright. The forest dripped quietly, and puddles held pieces of sky. Dao walked with Rui near the paddies when a cry broke the calm. A woman stood on a ridge, boots sunk in mud, eyes wide with fear. "My daughter Yoon, she was here and now she's gone." Her hands shook. Farmers searched the reeds, but the girl was nowhere. Dao's chest tightened. He could not roar for help like his father. He could only try his small way. "Rui," Dao said, "check the dikes." The red panda darted off, tail leaving wet streaks. "Wing song," Dao called, and the crane wheeled above. The mantis tapped his whiskers, eyes sharp. Dao entered the reeds. Mud sucked at his paws. The smell was green and wet, the stems whispering around him. Then he saw it, a child's shoe, half sunk near the water's edge. His heart pounded. Through the reeds, he glimpsed Yoon perched on a tiny sod island, knees to chest, clutching her bamboo whistle. The ground around her was weak, water pulling at its edges. She looked too scared to move. "Hi," Dao said gently. "I'm Dao." She flinched but didn't cry. He lowered himself, voice steady. "Your mother is calling. We'll go to her. One step at a time." He breathed, then let out his rhythm. Meep, meep, meep. Soft, not frightening. "When I say step, you follow my song." She nodded, trembling. "Step." Dao shifted to firmer ground. She tested her toes and moved. "Step." Another careful hop. "Step." The island quivered but held. Rui appeared with a reed pole, ready if she slipped. The crane circled above, her shadow a calm hand. The mantis pointed ahead like a compass needle. One last gap remained, too wide. Dao stretched his body along the bank and flicked his tail toward her. "Hold on. We jump together." Yoon gripped his tail, eyes wide. Dao whispered, "1 or 2, 3. They leapt. He dug his paws into mud. She landed beside him, clutching his fur. For a heartbeat they froze, then laughter and relief burst. The mother raced across the ridge, scooping her child into her arms, sobbing with joy. She kissed Yoon's hair, counting fingers and cheeks. Then she looked at Dao, muddy, panting, his tail paw printed from rescue. Slowly, she bowed. "Thank you for your song." She pressed Yoon's bamboo whistle into his paw. Villagers gathered, quiet but smiling. No one shouted. No one fled. Instead, they poured warm ginger tea, wrapped Yoon in blankets, and watched Dao with new eyes. Later, Grandma found him resting, whistle clutched between his paws. He told her everything. She listened, then licked his damp ear. "Small steps, steady notes," she said. "That is how the lost find ground again." Dao curled against her side, exhausted but proud. Outside, the paddies glimmered in moonlight. From somewhere across the water, Yoon blew her whistle, thin, clear. Dao answered with his little roar, meep, and the two sounds met gently in the night. A misty dawn settled over the hills. Dao padded with Rui toward the deep bamboo groves, where the stalks grew tall and close, whispering when the wind brushed through. The crane glided above, and the mantis perched on Dao's ear, tapping as if keeping count. Rumor had reached the village. A hidden spring lay within the grove, guarded by trick echoes. Farmers claimed voices bounced strangely there, calling names back in different tones. Dao's whiskers twitched with curiosity. Inside the grove, light fractured into green shards. Bamboo stalks swayed, and each squeak of Dao's paws came back doubled, higher or lower. "Strange," Rui murmured, tail flicking nervously. It feels alive. Suddenly, a boy's laughter rang out, though no boy was there. The villagers who had followed gasped, clutching one another. A woman whispered, "The spirits are teasing again." Dao listened carefully. The echoes weren't random. They followed patterns, rising and falling like steps on a ladder. He breathed deep, then squeaked his rhythm, "Meep, meep, meep." The sound scattered, then returned, split into many notes that danced between bamboo stalks. Children's eyes widened. Rui's tail thumped. The mantis clicked along, keeping pace. Dao repeated the rhythm, steadier, paw tapping the earth. The grove seemed to answer, notes spiraled upward, then drifted back down. For a moment, it felt like the whole forest was singing with him. The crane spread her wings, letting them brush the bamboo. The stalks shook, adding hollow percussion. Villagers relaxed, whispering to each other. Fear thinned into awe. At the grove's center, water shimmered from a hidden spring. Its surface rippled with each echo, as though touched by invisible hands. A child stepped forward, cupped some water, and tasted. "Sweet," she said softly. The others drank too, smiles breaking. When Dao finally stopped, the echoes faded gently, like a song ending on its own. The villagers bowed. "The cub has tamed the grove," someone murmured. Later, back with Grandma, Dao told her of the singing bamboo and the spring. She smiled, eyes half closed. "Some secrets are kept until the right voice arrives," she said. Dao curled into her warmth, the memory of dancing echoes still ringing faintly in his chest. His little roar had found harmony not only with people, but with the very forest. By late autumn, the air over Mylin carried a new sharpness. Leaves along the ridge rattled dryly, and smoke from cooking fires drifted upward like faded ribbons. Word had spread that the sky would give a gift, a rain of stars. Families climbed the slope together, mats under arms, baskets of tea and buns in hand. Dao followed with Rui, his paws damp with dew. The crane glided just above the treetops, and the mantis clung tight to Dao's whisker, antennae quivering at every shift of wind. Grandma moved steadily, her gaze tilted toward the wide dark sky as though she were greeting an old friend. When the last lanterns were dimmed, silence fell. The ridge was a black sea of faces tilted upward, eyes straining. Dao pressed close to Grandma, tail wrapped tight. He hardly breathed. A sudden streak slashed across the sky, silver and swift. Gasps rose like a single note. Another followed, longer, leaving a glowing trail. Then the heavens opened fully. One by one, then in flurries, sparks tumbled across the night. Children clapped hands to their mouths in awe. Rui bounded after each falling line as if he could catch one in his paws. The crane spread her wings and let the light spill across them until they gleamed like polished silver. Dao could only stare, chest aching with wonder. A sound broke from him unplanned, instinctive, meep. High, small, but clear. Laughter rippled from the children, and they echoed him, meep, meep. Soon the ridge was filled with their playful chorus, tiny voices meeting the silent roar of stars. Dao found courage in the rhythm. He pawed the ground, step, step, squeak. The mantis tapped along, clicking sharp beats. Rui drummed his tail against a rock. Villagers smiled, some humming under their breath. The night became an orchestra, stars above, little roars and laughter below. The meteors fell in endless arcs, showering light as though the heavens were painting. Dao squeaked again, steadier, brighter. For once he didn't feel smaller than thunder. His voice wasn't meant to overpower, it was meant to join. Grandma leaned close, whiskers brushing his cheek. "Look," she murmured, "the sky sings its song, and you have found your place inside it." Dao's heart glowed as though one of the falling stars had landed in his chest. The rhythm of his squeaks matched the rhythm of light. For a long while, he forgot to be afraid of silence, of weakness, of not being like the tigers of old. He was enough, here, now. When at last the sky began to empty, only faint trails lingered. Families whispered wishes and folded their mats. Children dozed on their parents' backs, still murmuring little meeps in their dreams. Rui yawned, pretending he had caught a star in his paw. Dao stayed awake until the horizon lightened. The ridge smelled of grass and cooled ashes. As the first bird called, he realized the villagers would remember not just the shower of stars, but the tiny roar that had joined it. He padded beside Grandma down the slope, tired but glowing. Above, the last faint streak faded from sight, yet in his chest, one star still burned, steady as a beat. Winter's edge brushed Mylin. Frost silvered the paddies, and smoke curled heavy from every chimney. Dao woke to a hush that was not peace but waiting. Even Rui was subdued, ears flicking. "Something's coming," he said. By midday the wind shifted. Birds scattered. From the forest's mouth came a deep growl, real thunder, rolling closer though the sky was clear. Villagers froze in the square, clutching tools, and children. Then from the shadows stepped a tiger, massive, scarred, golden eyes blazing. Dao's heart clenched. This was no echo or storm. It was a true roar waiting to break. The great beast padded into the open. Farmers whispered, "Thunder Voice," a name from old stories of a wandering tiger who demanded tribute. His growl rolled like distant drums. Children hid behind their mothers. Rui's tail bristled, the crane hissed, the mantis froze on Dao's whisker. Dao trembled. His little squeak felt useless now, a toy against a mountain. Yet when the giant's gaze fell on him, something steadied inside. He remembered lantern light, bridges, rooftops, reeds, stars. Each moment had been small, but together they were larger than fear. He stepped forward. The square hushed. Dao's throat burned as he forced breath into sound, meep, meep meep. High, thin, steady. The elder tiger paused. His ear flicked. Dao repeated, louder, paws striking the ground in rhythm. Villagers joined, stamping feet. Rui beat his tail, the crane's wings whooshed, even the mantis tapped. The square filled with a heartbeat not of thunder but of many small voices together. The great tiger's growl faltered. He looked around, at children squeaking in unison, at mothers clapping, at fathers humming deep. His thunder could not drown so many. At last he huffed, turned, and melted back into the trees. Silence hung, then burst into cheers. Villagers lifted Dao high, chanting, "Little roar, big heart." That night, by Grandma's side, Dao finally rested. She nuzzled him gently. "Thunder comes and goes," she said. "But the voices that join together last longer." Dao closed his eyes. His squeak had faced storms, rooftops, reeds, stars, and thunder itself. He was no longer trying to be what he wasn't. His small roar was enough, and it had become the voice of a village. Above the frosted rooftops, the sky held quiet. And within Dao, a steady beat remained, small, sure, unafraid.